There's a light inside every man that certain toxic partners don't just dim, they systematically put out. I'm not talking only about confidence, not only about money, not only about social status or how he looks in the mirror. Those things often get damaged too, sometimes badly, but the real loss happens deeper than that. I'm talking about the part of him that used to laugh without calculating how it would be received. The part that could get excited about something simple. The part that believed tomorrow could be better. The part that built things, imagined things, planned things. The part that had curiosity and play. Some partners don't just break hearts, they hollow people out. They don't just hurt you, they reshape you, slowly, quietly, until you're operating like a man who's technically alive, but emotionally absent. Most men don't realize it's happening while it's happening. That's what makes it so dangerous. It doesn't feel like a takeover. It feels like love, commitment, maturity, compromise, working on the relationship. And by the time you understand what you've been living inside, the light is already low. I've sat across from men who came out of these relationships, and they all share a look: dead eyes, a smile that doesn't reach their face, a posture that says, I'm here, but I'm not really here. They still show up to work, they still pay bills, they still function, but the spark is gone. The inner engine that makes life feel worth living has been damaged. This isn't just sadness. Depression implies you can still feel pain, still feel loss, still feel longing. A lot of these men don't feel that either. It's emptiness, flatness, emotional anesthesia. They're not even crying. They're staring at walls. They don't feel hopeless. They feel nothing. And it's hard to explain that to someone who hasn't lived it, because from the outside you look fine, but inside you're vacant. So let's talk about what's really being destroyed and how it happens. Because if you're a man in this situation right now, you need language for what you're experiencing. And if you've been through it already, you need a framework for how to rebuild. And if you're dating and trying to avoid this, you need to recognize the early patterns before you get trauma bonded to someone who turns love into a weapon. And I want to be clear, this isn't all women. This isn't even most women. This is a specific type of toxic partner with consistent patterns. Men can be toxic too, but the dynamic I'm describing here is one a lot of men recognize instantly. And society doesn't give men enough permission or clarity to talk about it without being mocked. So I'll say it plainly. Psychological abuse is real. Emotional abuse is real. And the damage it does to a man is not soft, not imaginary, not something you man up through. It changes your nervous system. It changes your identity. It changes how you trust yourself. Now here's the core idea most men need to understand. Every man carries an inner child. I don't mean it in a trendy, spiritual, self-help cliche way. I mean it as the simplest description of something real. The part of you that existed before the world trained you to perform. The part of you that has wonder, creativity, playfulness, curiosity. The part that can build something in a garage and lose track of time. The part that laughs at dumb jokes. The part that gets excited by an idea. The part that still believes you can create a better life. That's not childish. That's life force. It's the fuel behind your ambition, your resilience, your humor, your ability to bond, your ability to dream. It's what makes you a man who can endure hardship and still find meaning. It's what helps you keep going. And that inner child has needs, not luxury needs, basic needs, acceptance, appreciation, space to exist without being mocked, safety to express emotion without punishment, respect for your boundaries, room to have joy without being shamed for it. When those needs are met, men thrive. They become better fathers, better leaders, better partners, better friends. They build, they grow, they take risks, they innovate, they feel alive. When those needs are systematically denied, not accidentally, not occasionally, but repeatedly and deliberately, something inside starts to die. That's what toxic partners destroy first, your joy. Because joy makes you independent. Joy gives you self sustaining energy. Joy makes you harder to control. A man who still has joy has options. He has standards. He can walk away. He can rebuild. He can create meaning without her. A toxic partner doesn't want you powerful like that. So she attacks your sources of life. At first, it doesn't look like an attack. It looks like help. She frames it as, I just want you to be better. She frames it as, I'm honest, I tell the truth. She frames it as, I'm trying to improve you. She frames it as, I care about us. And maybe early on, you even respect that. Because men respect accountability. Men respect growth. Men want to lead better. They want to be better. But what's happening underneath is not accountability, it's deconstruction. She doesn't criticize what you do, she criticizes what you are. Your hobbies become stupid. Your friends become losers. Your interests become childish. Your humor becomes annoying. Your dreams become unrealistic. Your optimism becomes naive. Your excitement becomes immature. She doesn't just disagree with you, she disrespects you, and not in a direct, obvious way at first. It's subtle. It's comments, eye rolls, sighs. I can't believe you think like that. You're so, I don't know, weird. No wonder people don't take you seriously. These aren't random remarks. They're precision strikes. They're designed to create a new belief in you that your natural self is unacceptable. And once you accept that belief, you start performing. You start editing yourself. You start shrinking. You start choosing safety over authenticity. That's the first death. You stop being you. Now, here's the psychological trap that makes this kind of relationship so hard to leave. The manipulation is not constant cruelty, it's intermittent. If she was abusive 100% of the time, you'd leave. That's obvious. But she isn't. She's warm just enough, loving just enough, sweet just enough, sexual just enough, apologetic just enough, vulnerable just enough. And that just enough keeps you hoping. Your brain starts chasing the good version of her like a reward. That's not romance, that's conditioning. This is how addiction works: intermittent reinforcement. You don't get the reward every time. And because you don't, you work harder. You obsess more. You try more. You invest more. So the cycle forms. She builds you up. Then she tears you down. Then she gives you a crumb of approval. Then she tears you down again. Then she acts loving again. Then she punishes you again. Your nervous system becomes attached to the chase. That's trauma bonding. And men inside trauma bonds don't think clearly because they're not operating from calm logic. They're operating from survival stress. Their bodies are flooded with cortisol. Their minds become hypervigilant. They're always scanning. What mood is she in? What version of her am I going to get out? What did I do wrong? How do I fix this? The relationship becomes the center of your nervous system. That's why men in these dynamics start looking like ghosts. They're not lazy. They're not weak. They're exhausted. Now let's break down the specific ways toxic partners extinguish a man's inner light. First, they create a rigged reality where you cannot win. They ask for your opinion, then punish you for having it. They demand honesty, then explode when you tell the truth. They pressure you to open up, then mock you when you do. They accuse you of being distant, then punish you when you get close. Whatever you choose becomes wrong. This is not conflict. This is destabilization. Over time, you stop trusting your judgment because every decision becomes a potential landmine. That's the second death, your self-trust. Second, they use humiliation as a control tool. Humiliation is one of the fastest ways to shrink a man because it doesn't just hurt your feelings. It attacks your status, your dignity, your identity. She embarrasses you in front of friends. She reveals private things as jokes. She mocks your vulnerabilities publicly, then says you're too sensitive. She compares you to other men in areas she knows you care about. She diminishes your accomplishments. She dismisses your sacrifices. The goal is not communication. The goal is to make you smaller so you stop expecting respect. A man who feels small accepts crumbs. Third, they isolate you from your support system. Sometimes this looks obvious. I don't want you seeing them. More often, it looks like emotional pressure. I don't feel safe when you're with those friends. They don't respect our relationship. Why do you need them? You're choosing them over me. It's framed as love, but it's control. Because if you're connected to strong friends, family, mentors, you have mirrors that reflect reality back to you. And reality is dangerous to a manipulator. So she slowly cuts off your outside perspective until her voice becomes your main reference point. That's the third death, your social anchor. Fourth, they turn your empathy into a leash. A lot of men trapped in these relationships are good men, builders, providers, protectors, the type who wants to fix problems, the type who takes responsibility. That's exactly who toxic partners target. They learn your conscience. They learn your loyalty. They learn your protective instinct. Then they weaponize it. They become the victim, no matter what they did. They cry when confronted. They twist your boundaries into abandonment. They call your standards control. They call your self-respect ego. They call your need for peace avoidance. And because you're a decent man, you start questioning yourself. Am I being harsh? Am I not being understanding enough? Am I failing her? Should I just be more patient? That's how your own morality gets used against you. Fifth, they rewrite reality. This is where gaslighting enters. They deny what they said 5 minutes ago. They reframe events as if you imagined them. They accuse you of twisting things when you're repeating words verbatim. They shift conversations until you're apologizing for reactions to things they caused. Over time, you stop trusting your perception. That's the fourth death, your grip on reality. And once a man loses self-trust and reality trust, he becomes manageable. Now here's the part men need to hear without sugarcoating. Men trapped in these dynamics often believe the solution is effort. They think, if I love her better, she'll soften. If I provide more, she'll feel safe. If I become what she wants, we'll stabilize. If I improve myself enough, the criticism will stop. That mindset makes sense in healthy relationships. In healthy relationships, effort creates improvement. In toxic relationships, effort becomes fuel because the goalposts keep moving. You fix one problem and she finds another. You meet one standard and she raises it. You sacrifice one part of your life and she demands another. The game is not built for you to succeed. It's built for you to keep trying. Your constant trying keeps you invested. Your investment keeps you controllable. This is why some toxic partners become angry when you actually thrive, because your thriving makes you less dependent. Now we need to address something uncomfortable. Not all toxic partners are simply hurt. Yes, people have trauma. Yes, insecurity exists. Yes, pain shapes behavior. But there's a difference between someone who is wounded and trying to heal and someone who needs to destroy others to feel powerful. Some people show patterns consistent with severe narcissistic traits: lack of empathy, entitlement, exploitation, constant blame shifting, and a need to dominate narratives. Some show colder traits: calculated cruelty, zero remorse, manipulation that isn't emotional but strategic. I'm not here to diagnose anyone, but I am here to name the behavior clearly. If someone repeatedly enjoys your pain, dismisses your suffering, and escalates when you assert boundaries, you are not in a normal relationship conflict. You are in psychological warfare. And here's what makes it worse. When you try to fight back like a normal man, it fails. A healthy person argues with limits. A toxic person argues with no limits. They will escalate beyond what you think is possible because they are not restrained by empathy or fairness. They may threaten self-harm to control you. They may threaten to ruin your reputation. They may involve friends or family to triangulate. They may use your children as leverage. They may make accusations that you never imagined someone would make. A healthy man thinks, no one would do that. A toxic partner counts on that. This is why communication is not the answer with someone who uses communication as a weapon. The answer is boundaries, distance, and often exit. Now let's talk about what happens inside a man as this continues, because this is the anatomy of a man becoming a shell. First goes confidence, not because you're incompetent, but because every decision is criticized, every initiative is questioned, every success is undermined. You stop trusting your judgment because she has trained you to believe you're always wrong. Then goes self-esteem. You stop believing you're valuable because you're constantly treated as the problem. Your efforts are dismissed. Your needs are minimized. Your worth becomes conditional. You're only good when you're useful. Then goes motivation. Why try when trying gets mocked? Why dream when dreaming gets attacked? Why build when building becomes an invitation for criticism? Then comes numbness. Numbness is not strength. It's shutdown. Your nervous system learns. Feeling leads to pain. Caring leads to punishment. Hope leads to disappointment. So you stop feeling. That's the death most men don't recognize until it's advanced. You become functional, but not alive. You still work, still provide, still handle logistics, but your inner world is gone. And once that's gone, everything else begins to decay. Career progression slows because your creative spark is dead. You stop taking risks. You stop innovating. You stop leading with energy. Fitness slips because the reward feeling is gone. You still train, maybe, but it feels mechanical. There's no satisfaction. Friendships fade because connection requires emotional presence. You isolate, not because you want to, but because you have nothing to give. Your relationship with your children suffers because kids need your joy, your play, your spirit. When your inner child is extinguished, you struggle to connect with theirs. And then one day, you realize you've become a man who is alive in the smallest definition of the word. That is not a relationship problem. That's a life emergency. So here's the hard truth. You cannot love someone into empathy. You cannot sacrifice enough to fill a bottomless void. You cannot be good enough to stop someone who needs domination. If someone's personality structure requires control and destruction, your love will not heal it. Your patience will not fix it. Your effort will not satisfy it. Trying harder often makes it worse because it teaches them you'll tolerate more. So what do men do? They protect what matters. And what matters is not just your bank account or your reputation. What matters is your inner life, your capacity for joy, your ability to feel meaning, your self trust, your dignity, your peace, your future. No relationship is worth the death of your inner child. No woman is worth you becoming a hollow shell. That isn't selfish. That's survival. Now, leaving is not easy, and we need to be honest about why. Men don't stay because they love the abuse. Men stay because of bonds and programming. They stay because intermittent warmth makes them chase hope. They stay because guilt is weaponized. They stay because isolation removed their mirrors. They stay because they fear losing their children. They stay because their identity is tied to being loyal. They stay because they've been convinced they're the problem. And the biggest one, they stay because they're afraid of being alone after being mentally trained to believe they're nothing without her. That voice in your head saying, you can't do better, is not truth. It's programming. It's her voice installed inside your mind through repetition. So leaving requires two things: clarity and strategy. Clarity means you name reality without negotiating with your hope. Strategy means you leave in a way that protects you. Sometimes that requires distance. Sometimes it requires no contact. Sometimes it requires documenting interactions because gaslighting distorts memory and reality. Sometimes it requires legal advice. Sometimes it requires therapy with someone who understands abuse dynamics. Sometimes it requires rebuilding your social network before you exit so you're not alone and vulnerable to being pulled back. And yes, no contact can be necessary. No contact is not cruelty when the person uses contact as a weapon. Blocking is not immature when the person uses openings to manipulate. Silence is not cold when conversation is an entry point for control. Every conversation becomes a chance for them to hook you again. They'll promise change. They'll cry. They'll threaten. They'll suddenly become sweet. They'll suddenly understand. They'll use your empathy, your guilt, your nostalgia as fishing lines. This is why men get pulled back in. They confuse momentary softness with transformation. Temporary niceness is not growth. It's a tactic. Real change is consistent behavior over time, with accountability, without manipulation, without blame shifting, without punishment for boundaries. Most men don't get that. They get a reset of the cycle. So here's the hope, and it matters. The inner child is resilient if you get out in time. Men who leave and do the work can feel joy again. Not instantly, not magically, but genuinely. The first real laugh that comes from your gut. The first day you realize you didn't think about her. The first time you make a decision without fear. The first time you do something pointless and it feels good. The first time you feel peace in your body. Those are not small wins. Those are resurrection moments. Recovery has stages. First is safety, reducing exposure to chaos. Then stabilization, sleep, food, training, routine, rebuilding the basics your nervous system needs. Then grief, mourning who you thought she was, the future you imagined, the time you lost, and the version of yourself that got buried. Then anger, not as a place to live, but as fuel for boundaries and self-respect. Then integration, turning the experience into wisdom without letting it define your identity forever. And one of the most practical parts of healing is reclaiming your joy. What did you love before her that she mocked? What were you excited about that she criticized? What hobby did you abandon because it caused conflict? What friend did you lose because it wasn't worth the fight? What part of you did you silence to keep peace? Those are not trivial. Those are clues. Every reclaimed piece of joy is your inner child coming back online. Play matters, creativity matters, brotherhood matters, physical training matters, purpose matters. Men heal through action and structure, not through endless rumination. You rebuild the inner child by building a stable life around him. And you rebuild your self trust by keeping promises to yourself. Start small. Train consistently. Sleep. Eat clean. Stop chasing chaos. Rebuild friendships. Work with a therapist who understands abuse dynamics if you can. Journal facts to counter gaslighting. Set boundaries and enforce them. Get your finances in order. Build purpose again. And most importantly, stop negotiating with disrespect. Because love without respect is not love. It's consumption. Now let's get even more practical for men who are dating or early in relationships and want to avoid this trap. The early warning signs are usually there. The problem is they're disguised. Extreme jealousy that's framed as passion, boundary violations framed as intimacy, control framed as care, isolation framed as I just want you to myself, criticism framed as I'm helping you improve, emotional volatility framed as I'm just expressive. Here's the simplest distinction: healthy partners want you stronger, toxic partners want you smaller. Healthy partners respect your joy, toxic partners shame it. Healthy partners can handle boundaries, toxic partners punish them. Healthy partners take accountability, toxic partners take control of the narrative. Healthy partners don't need you confused. Toxic partners thrive on confusion. If you remember nothing else, remember this: confusion is not love. Walking on eggshells is not love. Fear is not love. Shrinking is not love. A relationship is supposed to expand your life, not reduce you to a man trying to survive someone's moods. And if you're already in it, I want to speak to the part of you that still has a small flame left, the part of you that remembers who you were. That part is not dead. It's waiting. It's waiting for you to choose yourself. It's waiting for you to stop calling self-defense selfish. It's waiting for you to stop sacrificing your spirit to keep someone else comfortable. Your first responsibility is not to preserve a relationship that is killing you. Your first responsibility is to protect the part of you that makes life worth living. If you stay long enough, the damage can become deep and stubborn. Men in their 50s who stayed too long often recover slower because they spent decades in shutdown. They can rebuild, but it's harder. Not impossible, harder. And the cost of staying is never just you. Your parents watch their son disappear. Your friends lose you slowly. Your children grow up watching a man shrink. Your future self loses years. He will never get back. Leaving isn't just for you. It's for everyone who actually loves you. So if you're in it right now, start planning. Quietly, intelligently. If you've left recently, hold the line. Don't romanticize the good moments. Don't let guilt rewrite reality. Don't let loneliness invite you back into chaos. If you're healing, be patient. You're not weak because it takes time. You were reprogrammed. You're rebuilding your nervous system and identity. And if you've healed, share your story. Not to live in bitterness, to give other men a map. Because men need maps. Men need language. Men need frameworks. Men need permission to say, I was psychologically abused, and it broke parts of me, and I'm rebuilding. That is not weakness. Real weakness is staying while you die inside because you're afraid of what people will say. Real strength is choosing your life. Here's the final message, and I want it to land. Your inner child is sacred. That part of you that holds wonder, creativity, joy, and hope is not something to grow out of. It is the source of your vitality. It's the part of you that makes success meaningful. It's the part that makes love possible. It's the part that makes fatherhood warm, not just responsible. It's the part that makes life more than a list of tasks. Anyone who mocks it, shames it, attacks it, or tries to extinguish it is not loving you, regardless of what they claim. If you're a man in a toxic relationship, your job is not to fix her at the expense of yourself. Your job is to protect the man inside you. Because without that man, nothing you build will feel like anything. And I want to ask you something directly. What did a toxic relationship do to your inner life? What part of you did it kill? What part came back when you left? What would you tell the man who is still inside it and can't see clearly? Put it into words, even if only for yourself, because naming it is the first act of reclaiming your reality. Every man deserves to keep that light, not because life is easy, but because life without that light isn't life at all.